My name is Richard Passold. Welcome to the Internet of Cars, Part 5. Today we're going to focus on how our eyes and brain work together to allow us to see things and compare it to how cars see the road. Dr. Sheila Nierenberg discovered the code our eyes sends to the brain. She's developing also technology to restore eyesight to blind people. Please take a listen.
My name is Sheila Nierenberg, and I'm a professor at Weill Medical College, which is part of Cornell University. My lab studies, we work on how the brain processes information, so how it takes information from the outside world and converts it into neural activity, and then how it uses that neural activity to allow you to do things, to see, to hear, to reach for an object, things like that. You have sensory systems that take information, physical energy from the outside world, like patterns of light or sound, and then but it has to get converted into a language that the brain can use for processing it to allow you to do things. When you have a retinal degenerative disease, what happens is that the input cells, your photoreceptors, die. And then the interneurons, because they're connected to them, they start to die too. But the ganglion cells remain intact. So the ganglion cells are the output neurons of the retina. They're the ones that form the optic nerve. And so everything depends on them. They're the guys that send the signals onto the brain. So what we worked out was this code so that we could go from an image into these ganglion cell firing patterns. And people had worked this out for very simple images like stripes or checkerboards, but to be able to do it in real time for natural scenes was a really critical part of it. The way our device works is that we have a camera and it takes the images in, and then we have this encoder device, and it converts the images in real time into a code. And it's external to the patient, and it sends the code into the ganglion cells. We just jump over all the damaged area and go right to those ganglion cells and get them to send the signals to the brain. And then everything else is external, so they would just wear glasses that will interact with a protein that's in their eye. The reason it's exciting is it has the potential to bring back, sort of near normal vision because it has the code. And so there's the handshake between what the brain is expecting signals from the eye, and now we can provide them. And so that's the idea.
Pretty amazing, right? With Sheila's groundbreaking work, restoring sight will be one of the miracles technology will deliver in the short term. Let's see how Car managed to see the road. Google's Chief Technology Officer, Chris Urmson, who has been with the Google Self-Driving Cars project since it began in 2009, recently explained how cars can see the road. Notice in his presentation that Google Self-Driving Cars not only uses an array of sensors and map data to drive the road, but it also is able to classify many different objects and events, even anticipating what other drivers will do. In short, we're clearly in the realm of artificial intelligence for self-driving cars. Here is Mr. Chris Urmson.
Let's spend some time talking about how the car sees the world. So this is our vehicle. It starts by understanding where it is in the world by taking a map and its sensor data and aligning the two. And then we layer on top of that what it sees in the moment. And so here, all the purple boxes you can see are other vehicles on the road, and the red thing on the side over there is a cyclist. And up in the distance, if you look really closely, you can see some cones. Then we know where the cars were in the moment, but we have to do better than that. We have to predict what's going to happen. So here the pickup truck in the top right is about to make a left lane change because the road in front of it is closed. And so it needs to get out of the way. Knowing that one pickup truck is great, but we really need to know what everybody's thinking. So it becomes quite a complicated problem. And then given that, we can figure out how the car should respond in the moment. And so what trajectory it should follow, how quickly it should slow down or speed up. And then that all turns into just following a path, turning the steering wheel left or right, pressing the brake or gas. It's really just two numbers at the end of the day. So how hard can it really be? Back when we started in 2009, this is what our system looked like. So you can see our car in the middle, the other boxes on the road driving down the highway. The car needs to understand where it is and roughly where the other vehicles are. It's really a geometric understanding of the world. Once we started driving on neighborhoods and city streets, the problem becomes a whole new level of difficulty. You see pedestrians crossing in front of us, cars crossing in front of us, going every which way, the traffic lights, crosswalks. It's an incredibly complicated problem by comparison. And then once you have that problem solved, The vehicle has to be able to deal with construction. So here the cones on the left are forcing it to drive to the right, but not just construction in isolation, of course. It has to deal with other people moving through that construction zones as well. And of course, if anyone's breaking the rules, the police are there. And the car has to understand that that flashing light on the top of the car means that it's not just a car, it's actually a police officer. Similarly, the orange box on the side here, it's a school bus. And we have to treat that differently as well. When we're out on the road, other people have expectations. So when a cyclist puts up their arm, it means they're expecting the car to yield to them and make room for them to make a lane change. And when a police officer stood in the road, our vehicle should understand that this means stop, and when they signal to go, we should continue. Now, the way we accomplish this is by sharing data between the vehicles. The first kind of most crude model of this is when one vehicle sees a construction zone, having another know about it so it can be in the correct lane to avoid some of the difficulty. But we actually have much deeper understanding than this. We can take all of the data that the cars have seen over time, the hundreds of thousands of pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles that have been out there, and understand what they look like, and use that to infer what other vehicles should look like and other pedestrians should look like. And then, even more importantly, we can take from that a model of how we expect them to move through the world. So here the yellow box is a pedestrian crossing in front of us. Here the blue box is a cyclist, and we anticipate they're going to nudge out and around the car to the right. Here there's a cyclist coming down the road, and we know they're going to continue to drive down the shape of the road. Here somebody makes a right turn, and in a moment here, somebody's going to make a U-turn in front of us, and we can anticipate that behavior and respond safely. Now that's all well and good for things that we've seen, but of course you encounter lots of things that you haven't seen in the world before. And so just a couple of months ago, our vehicles were driving through Mountain View, and this is what we encountered. This is a woman in an electric wheelchair chasing a duck in circles on the road. Now it turns out there is nowhere in the DMV handbook that tells you how to deal with that. But our vehicles were able to encounter that, slow down, and drive safely. Now, we don't have to deal with just ducks. Watch this bird fly across in front of us. The car reacts to that. Here, we're dealing with a cyclist that you would never expect to see anywhere other than Mountain View. And of course, we have to deal with drivers, even the very small ones. Watch to the right as someone jumps out of this truck at us. And now, watch to the left as the car with the green box decides he needs to make a right turn at the last possible moment. Here, as we make a lane change, the car to our left decides it wants to as well. And here, we watch a car blow through a red light and yield to it. And similarly here, a cyclist blowing through that light as well. And of course, the vehicle responds safely. And of course, we have people who do I don't know what sometimes on the road, like this guy pulling out between two self-driving cars. You have to ask, what are you thinking? Now, I just fire-hosed you with a lot of stuff there, so I'm going to break one of these down pretty quickly. So what we're looking at is the scene with the cyclist again. And you may notice in the bottom, we can't actually see the cyclist yet. But the car can. It's that little blue box up there. And that comes from the laser data. And that's not actually really easy to understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that laser data and look at it. And if you're really good at looking at laser data, you can see a few dots on the curb there, right there. And that blue box is that cyclist. Now, as our light is red, the cyclist light has turned yellow already, and if you squint, you can see that in the imagery. But the cyclist, we see, is going to proceed through the intersection. Our light has now turned green, his is solidly red, and we now anticipate that this bike is going to come all the way across. Unfortunately, the other drivers next to us were not paying as much attention. They started to pull forward, and fortunately for everyone, the cyclist reacts, avoids, and makes it through the
As impressive Google technology is, it's still a far cry away from how our eyes and brains are able to see our surroundings. Although these vehicles are filled with the latest computer technology, their power compared to our brain is really abysmal. This picture is an approximation between our brain and Google's car artificial intelligence. However, a far better description is comparing the size of the sun to the size of the earth to depict this difference in intelligence power. Now, to solve this and other related issues, Google recently hired Mr. Ray Kurzweil, the famous author of the bestseller books The Singularity is Near. Mr. Kurzweil has a very interesting theory how computers will solve these and other problems in the short future. This is what we're going to review together on part 6 of the Internet of Cars. If you like what you see, please press the like button below or leave a short comment. You can also reach me on my email. Thank you very much for watching. See you in part 6 of the Internet of Cars. Thank you.